Today, we've got an amazing story for you. It's about a deadly problem, a physics puzzle that seemed totally impossible, and the frail, quiet genius who solved it all by slicing up glass. And in doing so, he basically tamed the darkness of the open sea. It's a story that starts with absolute terror and, believe it or not, ends right in your pocket.
You have to imagine what it was like. For most of human history, the ocean at night was just an abyss. On a moonless night, the darkness was so complete, so absolute. It was like a void that could swallow ships whole. If you were a sailor trying to navigate a dangerous coastline, every single sunset brought this very real risk of just being smashed to pieces on rocks you couldn't even see.
So yeah, the need for a light, a really powerful, really reliable light, was literally a matter of life and death. But for centuries, engineers were just completely stumped. They kept running into this one fundamental problem they just couldn't crack. They really tried two main approaches. First up, mirrors. The idea was simple. Use polished metal reflectors to aim the light from a fire. But the ocean itself was the enemy here. All that salty sea air would rust and tarnish the metal almost immediately, making the mirrors totally useless. So, okay, they moved on to glass lenses. These could focus light into a powerful beam. But this led to an even bigger problem. Here was the catch-22. To make a lens more powerful, you had to make it bigger. But as the lens got bigger, it got exponentially thicker and heavier. You'd end up with this monster lens weighing several tons, and it would be so thick that the glass itself would just soak up most of the light it was supposed to be focusing. The solution was the problem. They had hit a physical dead end. But then came a French civil engineer, a man who wasn't afraid to challenge the giants of physics, and who saw this whole problem in a completely new way. His name was Augustin Fresnel, and his idea was as radical as it was brilliantly simple. Now, Fresnel was not your typical hero. He was a sickly kid, a slow learner. In fact, he didn't even learn to read until he was 8 years old. But he had a mind that just saw the world differently. He famously went up against Isaac Newton's theory that light was a particle, insisting that light actually behaved like a wave. And that wave-like thinking, that was going to be the key to everything. So here it is, Fresnel's eureka moment. And it's so simple, it's beautiful. He realized that the only part of the lens that's actually doing the work, the part that bends the light, is its curved surface. All that thick, heavy glass in the middle, it was completely useless, just dead weight that was absorbing the very light it was meant to focus. So he proposed something you could almost call lens surgery. Okay, first, picture that giant, useless lens. Now, imagine slicing it into a whole series of concentric rings, kind of like the rings of a tree trunk. With each ring, you keep the essential part, that curved surface, but you get rid of all the thick, heavy glass behind it. And finally, you just collapse all those thin, curved rings down onto a single flat plane. And what you get is just, well, it's this beautiful stepped lens. It's light, it's thin, and yet it has the exact same focusing power as that massive, solid beast it came from. He took away all the unnecessary weight, but kept all of the power. It was probably the most elegant act of subtraction in the history of physics. And this basic idea was then built into a final design that was, honestly, less of a lens and more of a beautiful, intricate trap for light itself. Let's break it down. Right at the center, you have the main lens, the bullseye. That creates the core beam of light. Surrounding that are these rings of refracting prisms, and their job is to capture light and bend it into that main beam. But the real stroke of genius is at the top and the bottom. These special prisms use total internal reflection to grab every last ray of light that would have just shot up into the sky or down into the sea, and force it back into the beam. Nothing is wasted. The efficiency of this thing was just astounding. A traditional lighthouse wasted most of its light. The Fresnel lens, it captured and focused over 80% of the lamp's light. That was just an incredible leap forward in performance. So the design didn't just illuminate, it commanded the light. It took the chaotic, scattered glow from a simple oil lamp and organized it, forcing it into this disciplined, powerful beam that could just slice through miles and miles of darkness and fog. So, okay, the theory was perfect, the design was gorgeous, but would it actually work in the real world? Well, in 1823, at the Cordouan Lighthouse in France, everybody was about to find out. And this was not some overnight success story.
After he got the commission in 1819, it took years of painstaking work by master artisans to grind and assemble hundreds of individual glass pieces into the very first functional lens.
So when they finally lit the lamp on that historic night, the effect was immediate, and it was shocking. The beam was so piercingly bright, so completely unlike anything anyone had ever seen before, that sailors miles away were actually terrified. They were convinced the lighthouse itself was burning down. You see, the Fresnel lens didn't just make lighthouses brighter, it made them smarter. By putting the whole lens on a rotating mechanism, each lighthouse could broadcast its own unique flashing signature. Navigation was transformed overnight. It went from a sailor saying, "Okay, I see a dim light over there," to saying, "I see that flash every 10 seconds. That's the Cordovan light. I know exactly where I am." It was a total game changer. Sadly, Fresnel died just a few years later at the young age of 39. But his invention? It didn't die with him. Oh no. In fact, it jumped from those lonely lighthouses and has quietly snuck its way into almost every corner of our modern world. You know the concentric rings you see on your car's taillights? Yep, those are miniature plastic Fresnel lenses. They're designed to make a tiny little bulb intensely visible to all the cars behind you. Ever been to a theater? Those powerful focus spotlights that can pick out a single actor on stage? They're using Fresnel lenses to create that sharp beam without needing some massive, heavy piece of glass. And get this, in renewable energy, huge sheets of plastic Fresnel lenses are used to concentrate sunlight onto small, super-efficient solar cells, which dramatically boosts their power output. And here's the one that might really surprise you. They're in the most cutting-edge tech we have. Virtual reality headsets. Think about it. They need to be lightweight, and they have to create a wide, clear field of view from a screen that's inches from your eyes. The perfect solution to that problem? Fresnel's 200-year-old idea. So, from a giant glass lens in the 19th century to a 21st century VR headset, the materials have changed, the scale has changed, but the beautiful, efficient soul of the idea is exactly the same: how to get the maximum effect with the absolute minimum amount of stuff. And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Fresnel looked at this heavy, clunky, inefficient lens and saw that most of it was just useless. He solved an impossible problem by subtracting. It just makes you wonder, what other impossibly heavy problems in our world are just sitting there, waiting for someone to find the right thing to cut away?